of my high intensity exercise, you just force yourself to breathe in and out through your nose, and you're actually getting more oxygen. And you get more oxygen, what have you got more of? You've got more energy. And remember, cancer cannot live in the presence of oxygen. And so, the Sustain Me, to show you how you can use the Sustain Me to bring about the conditions in the body that the body needs to heal, the two specifics to increase oxygen are inhaling through the nose. Inhaling and exhaling through the nose. And you'll get better at it, and you can tape your mouth up to encourage your body to do that. But you will guarantee more oxygen. The cells, when we're dehydrated, tend to clump together like this. And when the cell goes through the lungs, it picks up oxygen like a little parcel. Like this. In dehydration, where the cells tend to clump, how much oxygen's been picked up? Can you see that you can diminish the amount of oxygen available at the cellular level if you're dehydrated? And you can drink 2 litres of water in the morning and you can be dehydrated by 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Have you noticed how God sends the water on the earth? In gentle rain, little by little. That's how we should take the water in. But sometimes we have a storm and the water pelts down too hard. What happens? You lose your topsoil. The rivers come up. Houses are lost. That's what happens when you drink too much water too fast. You drink 16 ounces all at once. It's not long before 16 ounces is going to have to come out. And this is great news for elderly people who don't want to drink water because they don't want to have accidents. So show them how to drink little by little by little. I wake up in the morning, I have half a glass of water. I go to the bathroom, I have half a glass of water. I pray, I have half a glass of water. I read my Bible, I have half a glass of water. And you see what I do? You spread it out. I always have the water next to me. I never used to drink water because I found it hard to drink a whole glass at once. When you've just climbed to the top of a mountain, it's easy. But the hardest part's in the winter. And that's where you need it. So little by little by little you take the water in. Now when the water comes out, it doesn't come out as pure water. Of course it doesn't come out. It's bringing out our waste, but it's also salty. Our perspiration's salty. So the more water you drink, the more salt you use. So use of water implies that there's a time to drink water and there's a time not to. But we also need the whole salt because the whole salt helps our body access the water. So when is there a time not to drink water? That's with our meals. Because when we drink with our meals, we dilute our gastric juices, which are required to digest the meal. We should stop drinking about half an hour before the meal and resume drinking about an hour and a half to 2 hours after the meal. If you're thirsty after a meal, it's a clear indication that you sat to eat your meal dehydrated. Now, if you're thirsty after a meal, by all means have a mouthful. A mouthful's not going to make a huge difference, but it's more taking a large amount of water with the meal. And how many people were in such a fast society today? Run, rush, sit to eat. Oh no, I haven't drunk water. And the water is drunk with the meal. Then the gastric juices are watered down, and then digestion is slowed down because the stomach can't digest the meal until the gastric juices come up to a very acid condition. If someone says to me, I've got a very acid stomach, I say, fantastic, it's supposed to be. Did you know that dogs have 10 times the hydrochloric acid that we do? And you notice they don't get reflux or heartburn or stomach ulcers? But if you notice what they eat, they eat things that would kill us. My daughter's dog pulled the bone of a dead cow into the yard. What's that smell? And the dog's eating it. That's because hydrochloric acid is a very strong antimicrobial. Kills yeast, fungus, bacteria. So hydrochloric acid is actually necessary. It's a very important part of our digestion. There's only one part of the body that should be acid, and that's the stomach. When you wake up in the morning, it's not acid. It only becomes acid when the hydrochloric acid's released because you smell, think, start to eat food, and it's released. And we've got a thick mucosal wall lining the stomach to protect the stomach so that the acid doesn't eat the stomach. If we comply with these basic laws that are guaranteed to sustain us, then the body runs well, digestion runs well. But remember, our body is a creature of habit. And if someone's been on antacids for 20 years, they're going to have to retrain their body back. Do you know what's happening with long-term antacid use? Colon cancer. Because what's happening is the food's not getting broken down properly, so partially digested food is getting into the colon that should not be there because it should already have been absorbed, but it can't be absorbed because it's not broken down to the state it should be. And so bacteria and different microbes have to be produced to try and calm down this partially digested food and then contributing to colon cancer. No, the acid's not the stomach. It's not the problem because it should be acid. So I say to someone, how do you know it's acid? Well, it keeps coming up. Well, the problem's not the acid. The problem's the little gate here. So it's called the cardiac sphincter, that little gateway that goes into the stomach. And if the acid's coming up, the problem's not the acid, the problem's the gate. So why is the gate weak? Because the person's eating breakfast like a pauper, lunch like a pauper, and supper is the king and the queen together. How many people do that? And then when they lie down to go to sleep, gravity causes that food to push against the cardiac sphincter, weakening it. Now, it's not the odd day you might have an evening meal, or the odd day you don't. It's what you do every day. It's week after month of having that large meal at night. Little by little is weakening that cardiac sphincter. Stress, the cardiac sphincter is a muscle. And when we're tense, it opens. And I love the way the writer said that when we sit to dine, we should cast off care and anxious thought when we sit to dine. So when we're stressed out, when we're running to eat, when we're trying to deal with a stressful situation and eat our lunch, it's not working properly because the hydrochloric acid isn't released unless we're relaxed, and the cardiac sphincter is open. So everyone that comes to us with reflux or heartburn goes home without it. Because we serve breakfast like a king, lunch like a queen, and tea or supper like a pauper. One lady said, what do paupers eat? I said, sometimes nothing. And we give them magnesium. Magnesium is the ultimate stomach muscle relaxant. And when that little muscle is relaxed, it's closed. And the other problem is that many people are eating all day long. But because of the 5-2 diet, the intermittent fasting, there's a new message. And that message now with eating is time-restricted eating. And time-restricted eating suggests we eat twice in 24 hours, 6 hours apart. That's the old saying, breakfast like a king, lunch like a queen. And not an evening meal. If we're not getting the nutrients out of our food, it's very difficult for us to heal. But when we eat breakfast like a king and lunch like a queen, and don't eat again, or if anything's eaten at night, it should be very light. So many tradesmen, they're having breakfast at 6, they're having lunch at 12, they're going to need something at night. They're working physically hard. But it still should be the lighter meal of the day. And if breakfast and lunch is substantial, not much is needed at night. So let me explain nutrition. And I mentioned 3 food groups in the last lecture. These food groups are the 3 essential food groups. So the 3 essential food groups are fibre. Why fibre? Because our gastrointestinal tract needs to be swept every day. And fibre not only sweeps the gastrointestinal tract, but fibre also stimulates peristalsis. What's the house smell like if you don't empty you call it a trash bin? If you don't empty it for a couple of weeks, it smells pretty bad, doesn't it? Our gastrointestinal tract is designed to empty after every meal. When we eat and the stomach starts massaging and helping to break the food down, it stimulates the whole of the gastrointestinal tract. So the most natural time to eliminate is after the meal. Dr. Kellogg said 3 intakes of food a day should equal 3 evacuations a day. And one of the reasons that colon cancer happens is because the evacuation is not happening regularly enough. And if you notice that our colon's got a mind of its own, if you say it to go, it won't. And if you say it to stop, it won't. It needs gentle stimulation. And it also needs us to listen. It's very important that we learn to take attention of our body. Listen. And many people don't do this. They don't promptly answer nature's immediate call. Isn't that true? When the body says go, you've got to go. And if you don't go when the body says go, and then you try and go later, you notice you can't. Because when we feel to go, the contents is right pressing really almost on the anus. And if we don't go, and praise God that we have the ability to hold, because the plane's about to land and you can't go. But I think you'll agree with me, that's not often. So what the body does is it takes it back into the former part of the colon. And one of the main functions of the colon is to take water out, so stools are formed. So the longer it's there, the more water gets taken out, and then we've got rabbit pellets and cement forming. So it's important to go when the body says go. It's an important part of listening to the body. One lady, she's a lady that guides and directs many business people. She said, if I'm on the phone, I say, and I need to go, I say, excuse me, a crisis has arisen, I'll ring you back. She goes to the bathroom. It is important. And remember, it's not the odd day you might not go or the odd day you do, it's what you do every day that matters. And fibre gently stimulates the colon, and fibre also sweeps the colon. So one of the main causes of colorectal cancer is a refined diet with no fibre and a high meat diet which has no fibre. Sometimes when people are reading that grizzly steak, they think that's a lot of fibre. It's not fibre. It's not fibre at all. And the only way Dr. Robert Atkins got away with his high meat, high fat diet was his patients had to eat 3 cups of vegetables a day. The vegetables moved things through because he knew that it had to move. The highest fibre food is really your vegetables, certainly your fruit as well. But remember, your vegetables are high in fibre, high in minerals, low in sugars, whereas your fruit, it's high in fibre, but it's high in sugars and low in minerals. So it's your vegetables that are your healers. But there's a group of fruits that are called the savoury fruits. That's avocado, tomato, cucumber, eggplant, zucchini, squash, pumpkin. In fact, what you call squash, we call pumpkins. So I think you'll agree with me, they're the savoury fruits. See, the classification of the fruit is it has its seed in it. And they all have seeds in it. So when I say the no fruit diet, because what are we wanting to? We're wanting to get the glucose down. And so we advocate the no fruit diet for 6 weeks. So what does the person eat? Well, we've got our second essential nutrient, which is protein. Yesterday, or this morning I should say, we looked at the crossword bands in the DNA. They're made up of amino acids. We looked at the new cell. It's made with amino acids. Amino acids is a breakdown from the protein that we eat. You can't maintain the proper functioning of the body without protein. You cannot heal without protein. And your best proteins are your plant proteins. So your plant proteins are your legumes. In his book, The Plant Paradox, Dr. Stephen Gundry, he says, don't eat legumes, they're high in lectins, and lectins are inflammatory molecules. But if you read the fine print, if it's well rinsed and well soaked and pressure cooked, there's no lectins. Sally Fallon, in her book Nourishing Tradition, she looks at the traditional way people used to make food. And if you make food in the traditional way, long, slow cooking, what did they used to do with the legumes? They'd soak them overnight, then they'd rinse them well, then they'd put the corner on the fuel stove and they'd just pop away in the corner. Well, we can replicate that with the slow cookers. I had lunch at Chipotle's today. I love beans and greens. I didn't have the rice, I just had that bean and that bean and that tofu. The protein's very important. And I saw they had a huge slow cooker. And rinse them. That's dirty water. Rinse them, rinse them, rinse them. You can't really rinse them when they're fully cooked or you'll lose half your bean. So you rinse them when they're half or 3/4 cooked. And you will have no problem. Because of the way we prepare our legumes, none of our guests have a problem with it. The other protein is found in your nuts. Nuts are so delicious, it's easy to overdo them. How many people don't eat nuts for 2 weeks, then buy a packet of cashews and eat the whole lot in the afternoon? So what it's best to do is have about 8 to 10 every meal. That's what I do. You just get the nuts you're going to eat, put the lid on the jar, put it in the cupboard, shut the door, put the padlock on. They are delicious. In fact, I think it makes a delicious dessert. It's just a handful of nuts after the meal. And your seeds, and we have so many seeds: pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds, sunflower, flax or linseed, chia. And fats. 50% of the membrane around every cell in the body is protein. 50% of the membrane around every cell in the body is fat. Fat is an essential nutrient. You cannot heal without fats. You cannot function without fats. But the brain cell is a bit different. It's 70% fat. It's the fattiest organ in the body. And a big contributing factor to dementia and depression today is this ridiculous fat-free diet. When we look at heart disease later on in the week, I'll show you that there is no proof that fat causes heart disease. That's shocking, isn't it? Where's my little lies list? I've rubbed it out. Do you remember lies? Where we've been deceived. So let's look at the BHSC method, Bible, History, Science, Common Sense, to determine should we eat fats. What does the Bible say about olive oil? Yes. Do you remember the story of Elijah, time of no rain? God said, a widow will feed you. And Elijah said, if you bake me a cake every day, God said, the oil will not lack nor the meal fail. And every morning there was a bit more flour and a bit more oil in her cruse. Who put the oil in that cruse? What has God just said? We need the oil. I'm sure he didn't give her a quart a day. It's concentrated. We don't need much, but we do need a little. So the Bible says yes to fats. History shows us that the fats have been eaten for centuries. Science shows us that every membrane is 50% fat. Science also shows us the brain's the fattiest organ in the body. We need the fats. What are the best fats? The nuts, the seeds, olive and coconut oil. They're the two oils that have been used for centuries, and they're the two oils that are extracted from the flesh of the plant. In fact, traditionally, women could even extract those oils in their kitchens. They're the three essential food groups. The non-essential food group. The non-essential food group is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are not bad. It's only when they're overdone and refined. And when someone's wanting to lower the glucose, because remember, the cancer cell consumes 15 times the glucose of any other cell, it's important to get the carbohydrate content down. So what does the person eat? Breakfast. What's a breakfast on someone with a no-fruit diet? A breakfast might be avocado. We suggest 50% raw, 50% cooked. Cooked will deliver what raw won't, and raw will deliver what cooked won't. That's what I aim for, 50-50. Avocado, tomato. My daughter grows microgreens. Magnificent. So maybe some greens, might be microgreens, might be lettuce, might be cabbage. And then maybe a cup of lentils. Maybe they've been cooked in the crock pot overnight. Maybe you prefer black-eyed beans. Maybe you prefer cannelloni beans. What one lady told me she did, Monday was lentil day. Tuesday was, you call it peas, don't you? Black-eyed pea day. Wednesday was kidney bean day. Can you see what's happening here? And there are so many legumes, you could just about have a different legume every day for 2 weeks. Tofu might be one day, as long as it's organic. As long as it hasn't been genetically modified. A friend of mine did a thesis on soy. She has one answer when people ask her about the soy. She said, it's really simple. God made it good, man mucked it up. So when you eat soy, just make sure it's organic, because an organic farmer won't use genetically modified seed. And Monsanto is so big, he wins every court case where people are pushing to get it set, labelled or set on the label. But if you eat organic, you can be just about assured that it's not genetically modified. So a cup of lentils, maybe 8 nuts, maybe some chia, might have some steamed veggies with it. What about lunch? Well, the person might make the lentils into a shepherd's pie. Salad, nice big salad, everything you love, whatever works for you. Cooked vegetables, so those vegetables might be baked, might be steamed, might be stir-fried, and then protein. And the protein might be, again, if it's your lentil day, you might do a lentil dal, you might do shepherd's pie, you might make it into some patties. There's many different ways you can do it. So you have a chickpea day, you might have chickpeas for breakfast, just in with some salt and herbs and a bit of oil. And then for lunch, you might blend it up and make hummus. For lunch, you might mash it up and make falafels out of it. So there's so many things you can do. So many things. And the protein will be the legume and some nuts and seeds. There are so many different legumes, there are so many different vegetables that you can have quite a variety. I put my husband on this diet. When he was 30, he had his wisdom teeth taken out with some students under general anaesthetic, and they wired his jaw and broke it. And then his face swelled up like this, and basically antibiotics saved his life. So when I married him, about 10 years later, he had major fungal problems. I'd wake in the night with him scratching. So we reduced the sugars in his diet. We had him on some herbs. But a bit of stress came along and it got worse. So I said, I'm putting you on the no fruit diet for 6 weeks. Well, he said he thought his throat was cut for the first few days. I used to make a little stir-fry veggie for him every morning. And you have a magnificent bread here in the US. It's an online shop, and it's Simple Needs. KNEADS.com. And they will ship anywhere, but apparently I was talking to the guy that owns it, Tristan, and he said that he's in negotiations with Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, Sprouts, and his bread is going everywhere. It's a sourdough, it's organic, and it is all gluten-free. So it's high protein, low carbohydrate. And it's beautiful bread. I have never tasted such delicious gluten-free bread, because I think you'll agree with me, not all gluten-free bread is very nice. This is soft and delicious. And his competitors say to him, we don't know how you do it. He lists on his bread what he puts in it, but no one can replicate his bread. It's beautiful bread. So that is the best bread because, again, it's low carbohydrate. So what I did for Michael, he'd have his stir-fried vegetables, he'd have his sourdough toast with avocado and one day lentils on top, another day black-eyed beans on top, another day scrambled tofu on top. One day red lentil, one day green lentils. We totally conquered his problem. And after 6 weeks, he said, do I have to go back on fruit? So it's now 10 years later, and I still make stir-fry vegetables for him every single morning. Because his body said yes. Now, he will manage this for the rest of his life. But if he eats well, he has no problem. I am never woken with scratching in the night anymore. But if he goes out and has a Chinese meal or has a huge fruit meal, maybe 3 bunches of grapes, I see him starting to scratch his toes. So he manages it. Everyone I know is managing something. And if you can manage it, you're doing very well. And the Bible says that one day Jesus will come again. Then we'll all be cured. Yes. But until then, we manage. And if you can manage, you're doing well.